All right. I have the red live button on the top of my screen. So good evening, everyone out there. Somebody give a quick hello just so that I know. I know you're already in the chat, but just give me a quick hello so that I know that you can see me. But thank you so much for joining me tonight. For those of you who have been coming around to these for the last month or so, welcome back. And hello to all of our first timers who are joining us live. My name is Lindsay Barnt. I'm the Director of Student Transitions at the College of New Jersey. And I have a super popular special guest with me tonight, Scott Sferra, who's the Executive Director for our Office of Student Accounts. So I don't have any caffeine. So Scott, I didn't even tell you this, but these started last summer with the class of last year's new students that were coming in, class of 2024 in the fall transfers. And it was in the middle of all the craziness. And so I would always have an enormous cup of tea, usually for me. Even if it was 8 o'clock at night, it was a full cup because there was so much going on. And I can't do that anymore. If I have a regular cup of tea at 8 o'clock at night, I'm going to be up until 2 o'clock in the morning. So I started putting like ice cream in there, but I am at a remote location this evening. So for all of my normal people who log on, you might think that this is weird. Also, there's like a guitar just hanging out in the back there, if you can see. So way cooler spot that I'm in at. I'm broadcasting live from Northern Virginia, but Scott is just around the corner in Central New Jersey. And he's with us tonight. So Scott, thank you so much for being here. And this is a very busy time of year. I know that for all of the families that were on campus for orientation last week at the parent session, oodles of questions about the bill. And I said, well, sit tight. And if you're not doing anything on Monday night at 8 o'clock, that's going to be a really good opportunity to get some of your questions answered because we're going to have Scott. He's going to walk us through everything. So what we're going to do for everybody out there tonight, and so I'll give, actually, Scott, you'll give a bigger overview of what Student Accounts covers, but I'm going to turn it over to you for about, I don't know, 15 minutes, however long you want to talk. He's got a super great PowerPoint presentation. Yes, I will answer this question before we even get started. It will be available. He's going to post it on the Student Accounts website after this, tomorrow or the next day, and I will also post it on the Student Transition site. So you will have this PowerPoint for you to take a look at later, so don't feel like you have to sit there and get a hand cramp writing everything down. And then, of course, this this video is always available afterwards for you to go back and watch later if you need to. So we're going to start there. I wrote down all the questions that you submitted ahead of time. Thank you so much. I will monitor the chat. I will answer what I can, but the goal is we're going to be focusing on all the Student Accounts topics tonight. After we've kind of gone through that, I'm going to talk for a couple minutes about textbooks because there were a couple questions submitted there and I got a whole host of them last week. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then there were one or two housing related questions and some kind of nuts and bolts things that I'll cover that aren't related to Student Accounts towards the end of the hour that we have together. So hope that sounds good. And Scott, let me get our screen up and you can take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. It's always an honor to take a few moments to speak with you on behalf of the Office of Student Accounts and our treasurer, Mr. Ricketts. We play a vital role in the college's operation, and especially now, as we're getting closer to the semester, our role gets a little bit bigger with all the things we provide and the different roles we play for the college. So again, I appreciate you taking the time out of your Monday night to join us. I will make this as brief as possible, but certainly give you all the details that you need to walk away, hopefully, with a wealth of knowledge. So with that, Lindsay, please. So who are we? You can, oh, there you go. So what do we do in Student Accounts? We obviously serve the campus community, which is comprised of students, faculty, and staff. We manage the billing process of tuition, fees, room and board, also known as housing, if you will, student health insurance, which is a very popular topic these days as well. We manage the process of waiving and enrolling of health insurance. We do the processing of student refunds. So should you be owed money from the college, we manage that process. We issue and manage the college ID card program. We help to establish the Get a Card account, which I'll talk about shortly, and what that means for both you parents and the students. And then we also do parking services, not only the issuing and the sales of parking decals, but managing questions and concerns that might come in throughout the course of the year. So that's kind of in a nutshell what Student Accounts does. And with that, I will move probably to one of the most popular slides that people always look forward to seeing, which is the undergraduate direct cost of attendance. So as you can see there, it's broken down into two categories: in-state, out-of-state. If you're an in-state student, your tuition, and again, I'll round some numbers, but you have the exact ones in front of you, is roughly $6,800 per semester, fall and spring. Fees are roughly $1,800 for each semester, and room and board is roughly $7,300. Now, keeping in mind, you see an asterisk next to the fees. What that means is if your student chooses to enroll into the health insurance coverage, that amount will go up by $2,274, which is a cost of health insurance for an academic year. Next to room and board, there are 2 asterisks, and that's because I chose the actual cost of the room per semester, but I chose a kind of middle ground in terms of meals per week, and that gave me the $7,300 per semester. So you're looking at roughly $1,600 per semester. I'm sorry, $16,000 per semester. My apologies. With a yearly cost of $32,000. If you're out of state, you'll notice that the fees and the room and board remain the same. They do not change regardless of your residency status. But tuition is for those incoming freshmen sits at $9,522 per semester, giving you a yearly total of $37,330 for everything combined. Tomorrow, we will be issuing the tuition bill for the fall semester. So these numbers will be coming at you live as it relates directly to each respective student. Lindsay, if you would. In front of you is our billing calendar for the fall semester. We bill on a monthly basis because student charges may change. They may add something. They may delete something. A miscellaneous charge might come in for a program they're in. We want to bill students every month so that way they can be on top of their finances. So as you can see, the initial fall bill comes out tomorrow, July 27th, with a due date of August 16th. We're going to bill again on August 17th, a day later, due August 31st, which I believe is the first day of classes. For parents, I just want to make you aware that we do not mail anything out to your home address. Everything is done via email directly to the student. It is the student's responsibility to let you as the parent or someone who might be helping them pay for school know that the bill has been issued and when the due date is. I will talk in a little bit, which I'm sure you've heard about already previously, is something called auxiliary access or authorized user, which can certainly put you parents into the notification process at the same time as a student. Lindsay? So how do you view your bill? And this might be slightly small on your screen, but once you log into the PAWS account, utilizing your authorized user access, under the finance section, there is a view bill that you can see in a red box on the left-hand side. You'll click on that, and on the right-hand side will pop up a PDF copy of the bill. This is a snapshot in time. Just like a credit card statement, if something has changed since the point in time this was issued, it may not be accurate any longer. But with that being said, when you do see this PDF bill, the first red box in the upper right-hand corner that is highlighted in yellow, that is the amount that's due to the college. What that takes into account is all the respective charges, any anticipated or actual financial aid or scholarships that the student may have received, and any other previous payment that had been made. If you look at that top red box and it says NA, that means nothing is due to the college at that point in time. Please feel free to look at the charges, look at the anticipated aid, look at the summary. You can run those calculations if you would like, and it will match up with what we show you as being due. Lindsay? So how can you pay for the bill? We've got a couple of options that are out there for you. Credit card, we accept all 4 major credit cards. That payment is done electronically only via PAWS. We do not accept payments over the phone. Please be mindful that our processor of the credit card transaction will charge a 2.75% convenience fee for any domestic payment. If it's an international payment, it's 4.25%. And that convenience fee is kept directly by the third-party provider for making that transaction be processed. We also accept electronic checking, where funds can be debited from a U.S. checking or savings account, and it'll be transferred directly to the student's account here at the college. It is important that you put in the accurate routing and checking account number on the PAWS screen. That way the transaction is completed without being rejected. Please be mindful that these payments are only accepted from checking accounts and savings accounts. We cannot take them from line of credit or money market accounts. It's only from checking or savings. Lindsay? You can certainly pay in person. I apologize for some of the spacing here. When we opened it up in this particular viewer, it kind of threw things off a little bit. So if you don't mind bearing with me, I appreciate that. You can pay on in person or by mail. Certainly cash is accepted. Student or parent can bring money into our Green Hall office, room 119, and get a receipt for their payment. You can mail a physical check into our bank's lockbox service, which is located in Philadelphia. Please be sure that if you're going to do that process, either way, in the memo line, please put the student's 6-digit pause ID number. That will be the only mechanism we have to tie that payment directly to the student. So without that, it'd be very difficult for us to make sure the right student gets credited for that payment. And a money order is fine. That can go through our bank's lockbox as well at the Philadelphia address that you see on the screen. Lindsay? Private scholarships. First, I want to congratulate all of our students who are receiving private scholarships. We have many, many students who get substantial money from outside donors, which is excellent for all the hard work they've done. We ask that you please advise the donor. If they're going to mail a check directly to the college, it comes to our office address, which is at PO Box 7718 in Ewing, and not to the lockbox. We're required by federal law to do reporting on the scholarship process, and we need to make sure we account for all scholarships that are sent to the college. If it goes to the lockbox, there's a possibility that we're not going to recognize that because it's an automated process, and we do not want to have any issues with an auditing process. So please make sure that any payment that is a scholarship-based payment, have them mail it directly to our office at the college. Lindsay? So how do you pay your bill? Just like when you went on to view your bill, just to the right of that is a link that says make a payment. You can click on that make a payment, which is shown on your screen in a red box, and it will bring up those substantial screens or subsequent screens next to you, where basically you'll enter the student information, you'll enter the amount that you want to pay, you're paying for tuition and fees, and then you will obviously submit that transaction. And that will process your payment, whether you're doing it by ACH, the electronic check process, or a credit card. Lindsay? We recognize that paying for a semester up front might be very difficult for many, especially with, the cost of education is certainly not a cheap investment. So we have partnered with CashNet, formerly known as Sallie Mae or Hire One, to offer a tuition payment plan. It's a semester-long plan, one for the fall, one for the spring. Each plan would run for 6 months, obviously 6 individual separate payments. The payment is due on the 25th of each month. The enrollment fee is $25 per semester. So as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, the first payment was due July 25th, the last one being due December 25th. I recognize that July 25th has passed and many folks have not taken advantage of this opportunity. The payment plan is still available. What we would do is make your first payment due on August 25th. There's no back payment. And anything that remaining could be paid at the end of that December 25th cycle. It's not a loan. There's no credit check. There's no cosigner needed. It's just the college's way of trying to work with families to support them and help them pay for a potentially $16,000 semester bill over 5 or 6 months. The way the process works is you will, through a link that you'll receive in our billing email, you can go right out to the CashNet website. You can register as a new user, put in the school that your student is going to, which is the College of New Jersey, obviously, and you set up the plan for the amount that you want. So when you get the bill and you say, okay, the bill is $16,000, my student's getting a $5,000 scholarship, so I need to pay X amount, I need to pay $11,000 out of pocket, set it up for $11,000 divided over the remaining 5 months, and you can make payment without penalty using that process. Just a quick tidbit, if you look at the spring semester, first payment's due January 25th, last one is due June 25th. Lindsay. So authorized user access. As I mentioned, I'm assuming you've heard some of this before in other folks who have talked with you during these caffeine chats, but just kind of an overview. The College of New Jersey is bound by federal law, something called FERPA, the Buckley Amendment from 1974, that basically indicates when a student enters college, we are required to speak directly with them as the adult who's attending college, and we are not allowed to speak of anything related to their financial matters, academic progress, without their permission. So the college has created something called an authorized user, which basically is the student giving the parent permission and access to talk directly to the college or to log into our student system known as PAWS, where they can review whatever information students give them permission to. So when you sign up for an authorized user, the student's going to get a PIN number. That PIN number is something that you will need to know, parents, in order to have conversations with officials at the college. So when you sign up, please make sure you know your username, make sure you know your PIN number, because we'll be asking that information from you should you contact us. The student will select if they want you to view their grades, any enrollment or academic information, or other educational records. So you'll be able to log into PAWS and see exactly what they've given you access to. If they've not given you access to a particular feature, then we cannot speak with you about that either. So when the bill goes out tomorrow, if you're an authorized user, you will be receiving a billing notification as well as the student, so that you can know exactly what's going on and be in the know of all the communication that the student does get from our office. If you forget your username or password, the student has the ability to reset that directly by visiting their PAWS account and going in and updating your information. So again, parents, please, when you go to contact us, one of the first things we're going to ask you is we're going to ask you, what's your student's 6-digit PAWS number? And then what is your PIN number, which again authenticates you as someone who can talk to us about their account. If you don't have the information, I apologize ahead of time, because we will not be allowed to have any sort of detailed conversation about your particular student's financial record. Lindsay? So signing up for an authorized user, I figure I'd give you a couple of screenshots to see. Just below the finance tab that you saw in PAWS, there's a personal information tab where you can click on auxiliary access. It'll pop up the screen on the right, and that's where the student will create you, the parent, as an authorized user. You can see they give you a username, what the relationship is to the student, the password, and then you see the PIN number in that lower red box is what we'll need to know. You can see the 4 options that the student can choose to give you access to, whether it be financial aid, whether it be a student account question, whether it be a records question, or other educational records. So again, that's something that the student has to certainly initiate for you. Lindsay? Student health insurance. We've received a lot of questions already in the office relating to student health insurance. Tomorrow when you see your bill, most of the students will have a charge on the bill for $2,274. It gets billed once a year in the fall, and it covers the full academic year from August 1st until July of next year. Students, when they see that charge, does not mean that they have to enroll into the coverage. They can waive out of it. Earlier today, on my behalf, an email was sent out giving students some information about the health insurance plan as a whole. But later this week, there'll be a detailed email going out to all students with the information on how to waive or enroll into health insurance. So you can look at our billing email. You can wait for that email coming out in a couple of days. That'll give you step-by-step directions on how to waive out or enroll into the coverage. If you do not take action by the deadline date in September, which I believe is the second week in September, you're automatically enrolled into the coverage and will be responsible for that $2,200 charge. It can be used on campus in our student health services. It can be used off campus at your own doctor, hospitals, etc. As I mentioned, it's 12 months worth of coverage, so it's a full year. and only full-time students are eligible for this health insurance coverage. We understand that going through the times that we are, things may change. So if the student has waived health insurance and they have a significant change in their personal life and they need to look into getting health insurance, they can certainly reach out to our office or the insurance provider, which is Aetna, and they will walk you through if your situation will deem for you allowed to purchase coverage at that point. Lindsay. Tuition insurance is an optional program that we are involved in with a company called GradGuard. What it does, it is an insurance policy on your tuition and fees. Sounds kind of strange. Some people don't quite understand why we do this, but as we get into the academic year, we see that many students either wished they took part in this or seek more information about it. What it does is, as you can see in the chart below, the college has a refund process and a refund timeline. So the first week of school, should a student need to withdraw or take a leave of absence, the college will give you back 100% of what you paid towards that semester. After that first week, you can see it goes down to 75%, 50%, and then 0. If you were to purchase tuition insurance, you will see that wherever it's not 100%, the insurance coverage makes up the difference so that you're made whole. So you get back everything you put into the cost of tuition and fees on campus, room and board, etc. If this is something you're interested in, you'll be getting more information in early August. You as the student or as a parent, you can decide exactly how much coverage you want, whether you want to be $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 per academic year. And then the amount that you pay for that coverage is based upon how much you've chosen. Enrollment must happen before the first day of classes for the fall semester. So by the end of August, a decision has to be made and the insurance purchased if you so choose to do so. Again, it's optional. It's not something you have to do, but we're trying to give our students and our families all the options and all the benefits that we can to help them protect their money spent for education. Lindsay? Parking seems to be another hot topic that we're hearing a lot about these days. We broke it into 3 classifications. Parents, you are certainly welcome to come visit the campus. We just ask that you please get a visitor's pass from our information booth or from our campus police department when you come to campus. That way you can park and not be worried about getting a potential ticket from our campus police. If you are a residential freshman student, you are not eligible to have a car on campus for the academic year. However, some exceptions are made if it's based upon medical reasons, etc. You can purchase, as a residential student, 2 weekly passes per semester to park on campus. Realize you might have a family event where you need a car. You might have a medical need for 2 weeks. You might want to bring a car to unpack or to pack up to go home. So we certainly understand that, and there is a minimal cost to doing that as well. Commuters, knowing you need to come and go from campus every day, you can certainly have a vehicle on campus while you're there. You'll need to register your car with our parking services which will happen sometime in the earlier part of August. So what will happen for those commuting students, you'll be getting an email from our office giving you the instructions on how to register your car and purchase your decal through our web-based system. Once you do so, you'll pick up that decal once school begins in late August, early September. And currently, the cost is $105 for the year, plus the New Jersey sales tax that is above and beyond that. Lindsay. And there's just a screenshot of how a student will go about registering their car. We have a system called CARS, where they'll click on that off our parking page. They'll click on request a parking decal, and that's where they'll input their vehicle information. So when a student does go to do this, they'll need to have their vehicle registration card, whether it's a physical card or a photo of it, available, because we'll need information off of that to plug into our system. Once it's all been done successfully, we will review it. We will register your car. We will issue a decal, and then we'll give you instructions on how to place that decal on your respective car prior to ticketing beginning. Lindsay. So the student ID card and the Get It card, they are one in the same. one single card as a student ID. Obviously, it's used for photo identification for the student. It can be used for library services, get admittance to campus events, access to your residence hall or your meal plan. So again, everything that the student needs in terms of eating or access points are all on their student ID card. If it's lost or stolen, we highly recommend that they quickly notify campus police and deactivate the card on our website so that way it can't be used by anyone else. In addition, on that card is a separate wallet, if you will, that is called the Get It function. We call it the Get It card. Basically, it is a debit-based system where money can be put onto the card in advance, and it can be used throughout campus to purchase meals, purchase a snack, purchase tickets to an event. It can be used for printing on campus when you have to pay for photocopies or other printing needs. It can be used in our college bookstore as well. These points do not expire. So if you put on, let's say, $200 and you don't use them all in this academic year, they will carry to next academic year. The only time they would stop being available for use is when you graduate. Parents, you from home can be granted access so that you can put money on the card. You can monitor the spending. You can get low balance warnings. You can set up automated reoccurring deposits. So again, some folks don't want to have a ATM card on them at all times. And this is just a way for us to provide them with a little bit of purchasing capability on campus without carrying that and or cash. Lindsay. And here's a screenshot of how either a student or a parent could log into our online card office off the college's TCNJ Today page. There's a link for Get a Card. You can click on that, brings you up to that bottom screen where you can then select whatever function you would like to do, whether it's, look at a balance or add funds to that card. But every ID card has the capability of having a Get a Card activated once they receive it. Lindsay? And that brings us to the end of the presentation. I know I covered a lot in a very short time, but I just wanted to share with you that we're located in Green Hall, the building with the clock tower, room 119. We're there 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday, except in the summer when we're off on Fridays. And again, I thank you all for your time and attention. Hopefully I've answered a few questions, maybe created a few questions in the course of this. But we look forward to working with you and your students over the course of the next 4 years. So thank you again and welcome.
You definitely generated a lot of questions. So I tried to answer some in the chat. I know I was throwing links for the authorized users and for your site for student accounts for billing. So I have a list.
Okay.
I'm just going to go down. Sound good?
Sound good.
All right. So somebody had pre-submitted a question about scholarship checks. So I think you covered that where they get sent to, correct?
Yes, they should be sent to our office and not our lockbox. Yes.
Correct. Very good. And then that actually brings up, so a couple of people had questions about if they were paying the bill via a few different ways, right? So one person said two different types of checking accounts. One person said a checking account and the 529. So as long as it all gets in by the date, doesn't matter if it's multiple different sources.
No, we don't care how, whether you're using one checking account, two checking accounts, a credit card and a checking account, whatever works best for families. I know some questions I've heard in the past talked about 529s. How do we make that happen? Because there's so many 529 providers out there, it's not an automated process with the college yet. I'm working on that. That's a work in progress. But for now, you'll need to request from your 529 provider a physical check that they can either mail directly to our lockbox service, which is fine, as long as it has a student's ID number on it and name, if possible. Or it can be mailed to our office, whatever works best for you. But again, it's just something that is initiated by the student or family, and we're happy to post it when we get it.
Yeah, that was the other question. Is should they be sending it from the address that they're using for the 529 to be sent? Should they use the lockbox in Philly or the Ewing address, or it doesn't matter?
I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, the lockbox certainly is an automated process. They don't have to wait for us to post it per se. We get a file every day from the lockbox that we can then post. So they can mail either place, but lockbox is preferable.
Lockbox preferred. Got it. And then somebody asked if business checks were allowed.
If it's a physical check, sure, not a problem.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, great. Another question about just clarifying the waiver. So if you receive the waiver for the student health insurance by the 16th, it will be removed from the bill.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is, in most cases, most students are going to get a bill tomorrow with the health insurance charge on the bill.
Correct.
They'll get an email later this week with those instructions on how to waive the health insurance. So once you submit all that information, and again, just maybe a bit more detail, the student will need their physical health insurance ID card, because they have to put in the name of the provider, the policy number, the group number, that detailed information. Once they submit that, it gets validated by our insurance company, and then they send us a file of all valid waivers, and we take the charge off each student's bill accordingly.
Okay.
So give us, I would say, if you do it today, don't expect it to be off the bill tomorrow.
Right.
It takes some time to be approved. So, give us, 5 business days, and we should be pretty well caught up at that point.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let me go back because those were all the ones that I wrote down. We talked
Sure.
about authorized users a bit, but I know there's a few more that have come in since I started. Okay, so will money roll over to the following year or be refunded if not used for the Get It cards?
It will roll over from semester to semester, year to year, up until you graduate. Yes.
Perfect. And what happens if they have any on their account at the end when they graduate?
Once they graduate, we run a process automatically to refund that back to the student.
Perfect. So they'll get the refund.
Yes, they will.
Beautiful. Okay. This was a good one. I got a lot of these in my student transitions inbox last week for students who couldn't make it to orientation. So a parent asked, we're going to drive up to the college this week to pick up the son's ID card. Oh, well, actually, that's a separate question. That wasn't even a question. That was just what they were doing. Should we sign? Maybe we'll address that first. And then should we sign up for the Get It card first? But I think there was some confusion. So the Get It card and the TCNJ ID card, maybe clarifying that.
Yeah, so I would wait until you get your TCNJ ID card first, and then you can open up the Get It card second. In terms of the ID card, and I know, Lindsay, you and I have been working on this kind of as an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Some students who couldn't make orientation, how are we going to get them their ID card? And
They
again,
can't have it at all. No more.
We'll talk through the process. A couple of things we're trying to figure out is if you're a residential student, maybe when you come to drop off your belongings, we'll have a way to give you the card then. If not, certainly when you come to campus, that first week, first couple of days, we'll have we'll be open. We'll have all sorts of mechanisms to catch up with you at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would just share with everybody. So the opening plan for the college, because right now it's not fully staffed 5 days a week, 4 days a week, really, with the Friday closures, still for another couple of weeks. So I can't remember if it's the week of August. I think it's the week of August 9th. The expectation.
That's our last Friday off, whatever that Friday is.
But when are we're coming back to kind of like somebody in the office every single day that week? Correct. Yep. So coverage for the office. So I would just be careful planning to come to campus prior to the week of the 9th. Not that we're not open and we don't encourage you to come, but more of our traditional 8:30 to 4:30 hours with coverage, again, as we're kind of finalizing work from home policies and how this is going to go now for the fall semester from a staff perspective. I would just keep that in mind over the next couple of weeks because I don't want you to come to campus and not be able to get done what you're looking to do. And I don't want you to waste a trip there. So just a question about that. Okay, somebody else asked, if we're paying electronically from our checking, we need a routing number for the college if we are pushing the funds to you instead of the college pulling it from our checking account.
So if you're going to pay using an electronic debiting of your checking or savings account, you will input your routing number and your checking account number, and that will initiate the college to, if you will, pull those funds from your respective account.
Perfect. Okay, and then somebody else asked, the 529, can those funds go to the Get It card?
If you have a 529 check that is issued to, or I should say, made payable to the college, and you specify when you mail it to us that you want to put on the Get It card, absolutely. Or let's say that you pay, let's say your bill's $1,000 and you pay $1,300. As long as you indicate in a note to us that you want that $300 to go on the Get It card, we can do that as well. Absolutely.
Awesome. Great. Yep. Somebody asked if 2 payment plans could be initiated if they have 2 separate parents that are making payments.
Yes. Great question. I apologize for not covering that. Yes, we've taken into account those type of situations. So you can certainly, my recommendation for that is I would contact our representative. Her name is Rayanne, and her information will be in the billing email tomorrow. You can reach out to her directly and she can help you, or certainly Cash and I can do that for you as well.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Are we waiting for a link to take the insurance off our bill, or can we do it now? No, you can go do it now. I put the link in there, but feel free to pull that up on your own.
If you want to do it now, absolutely feel free. Not a problem.
Awesome. If a student waives the health insurance for the fall, can they change their mind and opt in for the insurance provided for TCNJ for the spring semester, or is that only? Okay,
nope, it's a year-long either commitment or waiver process. Yes.
Great.
Yep.
How is FAFSA financial aid submitted to the college? Oh, hold on a second. There were so many questions. Okay. How is FAFSA financial aid submitted to the college?
The financial aid process, the FAFSA is an electronic document that you need to fill out off the FAFSA government site. Once you complete that and submit it to the college, our financial aid office will receive that. They will review it, and based upon if everything is in order and they don't need any further information, they can process an award for you. If they need further documentation, they certainly would reach out to you and request that.
Awesome. Is TCNJ ID card also the swipe and point card? Yeah, so your TCNJ ID card does a few things, and Scott kind of covered this a bit, but it's going to get you into your residence hall if you're a student who is living on campus for next year. It will get you into academic buildings and labs if you are a student in that major and have access to those, library, printing services, all of kind of those things, and it does the dining halls, right? So whether you're a commuter or a residential student, if you're living or if you're eating in the dining hall, or you want to use, you want to go to the library cafe and get a Starbucks coffee or whatever, it's the same thing. So it's kind of a multi-purpose type of identification card for you. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying not to miss any. Who can I reach out to if I do not see the authorized user option in my daughter's PAWS account?
There's always a question that kind of baffles me, and that might be the one, Lindsay.
Okay. We got it.
You got it. What I would do, if the authorized user link is not in the PAWS account, Lindsay, can you just share with them individually the contact for our help desk?
I don't know if I have that, but whoever that was that asked that question.
The email address is helpdesk@tcnj.edu.
Yeah.
If you don't see it, I would send them an email with the student's name, their 6-digit ID number, and exactly what you're not seeing, maybe even a screenshot, and they can certainly investigate as to why you don't see that.
Great. And then a couple questions about merit scholarships or private scholarships, like when, I know those are submitted and then they'll get taken off the bill. Whenever they're posted, that'll come off the total that's due.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. When the bill goes out tomorrow, anything the college has received, which certainly should be all of our institutional aid, should be showing as anticipated, and anything we've received from a promise from an outside provider should be showing as anticipated. Again, barring we've received it and everything's in order.
Okay, great. My child missed live orientations dropping off on a Saturday. Was Carby Bill? Yeah. So part of what we're trying to do here, because drop and go move in is taking place over weekend dates, is that we're trying to get a process together so that the ID cards for those students who didn't attend in-person orientation are going to be available, so that when the students check in to do drop and go move in, that they would be able to receive them at that point. That's the goal. We're just finishing out and fleshing out some of the logistics for that, because we took our move-in process and spread it out over the course of 5 days. So that's the plan. Another question about the payment plan. So if I apply for the payment plan of 6 months and I start paying on August 25, the 6th payment would be in January. Would that generate any delays or fines?
So if you have not already enrolled into a 6-month payment plan, that option is not available now because our first payment was due July 25th. So it'll be August, September, October, November, December. It'd be a 5-month plan. But if you need to carry that excess balance until after the 25th, you can do that and then just pay that after the 25th payment is due, if that makes sense.
And there wouldn't be a fee, like a late fee or anything associated with that?
No, because what happens is if you set up the plan for the full amount of your balance, we give you credit for that up front. So the student account's going to look as if it's paid in full. And then it's just for the families to make sure they pay that monthly payment on time. But again, we've not issued late fines for that this past year, so I'm not anticipating that to change.
Okay, great. And then 1 or 2 questions about when the loans are posted to the account. Is that an automatic thing that happens?
Well, once financial aid has received all the proper documentation and the student's been awarded, yes, it'll happen after the add drop period ends is when the loans will disperse to the account. Again, as long as everything's intact and nothing's missing, and then it'll become actual live money instead of anticipated, if you will.
Okay, that makes sense. Another question. I know I'm just like spitfiring them at you. You're doing great. Are you sweating? I feel like I'm sweating a little bit with how
A little bit. I'm getting it.
Do you need to take a drink of water? Okay, another question. I think this is an easy one. So, how can students check the balance of their points on their ID card for like meal plans and stuff like that? Oh, you don't know the answer to that?
Well, there's my face again. You say again.
I think there's readers. I think there's physically 1 or 2 readers, and I don't know where they are on campus, but I think if they swipe the TCNJ ID card, it will tell them. But I also thought there was a website. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah.
Whoa!
We're scratching our head.
They got both of us. All right, I'll have to circle back with you on that. Who was that? Annalise, I believe. I don't know. I know there's a way, but I'm not sure which one that is. So I will circle back and see about that. But I do think there's 1 or 2 readers where you can just kind of swipe the card and then it tells you how many of the points are left, right?
Sure.
Okay, there's got to be something there. All right. Okay. Oh, this was a question I missed, and somebody asked it in the chat, so thank you. So we have some families, obviously, in our provisional cohort.
Yep.
Are there anything? Is there any? Obviously, that's a different ballgame, and a smaller group of students, just because they don't qualify for the financial aid. So the question was, is their billing timeline any different? Are there any kind of different pieces to that? Obviously, it'll be a different amount, and that's separate. But anything specifically for the provisional families that we might have listening tonight?
Outside of the respective charges that might be slightly different than what you see as an undergraduate student who's coming in as well, no, the timeline remains the same. Everything mirrors our academic and our billing calendar.
Awesome. Okay, great. And then there was a question about separate loans because you didn't qualify for financial aid for the provisional students. That is really a question I would ask them financial aid directly, because I have no knowledge or expertise on giving advice for that.
Yes, I would recommend talking to that financial aid team. Yes. Yeah,
for sure. And I'm going to throw the financial aid, the general inbox or email in there. It's just osfa@tcnj.edu. So Office of Student Financial Assistance, osfa@tcnj.edu. Anything really related to like loans, FAFSA, the private, all those kind of pieces, declaring the private scholarships if you haven't done that already. Their website's super helpful as well, but those are really the folks that you want to talk to about that. I mean, Scott and Will work, really closely together, and their teams really do, but they are kind of distinct, separate entities and separate areas of expertise. Okay, so somebody else asked, when we arrive for move-in on the 25th, what do we do first? So you're going to, I'll save that for a minute. We're going to talk about move-in in a couple minutes. There were a few questions about housing related there. Okay, and then last one, I think for now, if a student does not want to use standard federal loans, how do the loans get removed from the bill?
If a student does not, right now the college has something called passive acceptance. So if you do not respond back to the emails or go onto your pause account and decline the loans, they will automatically be dispersed onto your account. If you choose to decline them, the student needs to go into their pause account under financial aid section. And after each line item, each particular loan, there's a decline button that they can click on, and that will automatically notify our financial aid team to reduce that loan from your bill.
Awesome. Okay, great. Question, and then, all right, so one more question kind of related to the ID cards, and I think this was the second one that came up about that. Are meal points supposed to be used for dining outside of the dining halls? Yes. So the meal plans, how that works is that there's 2 components to the meal plan that you have, again, attached to your TCNJ ID card. Residential students have one, but commuter students can add block plans so that they can access the residence halls as well. And if anybody has a question about that, I can talk about that for a minute. But there's kind of 2 parts. So you have your meals per week, and you want to think about that is a swipe into the residence hall, right? So if you picked the plan that was 17 meals per week, that is 17 times that your student can go to the dining hall, swipe in, and then it's all you can eat, whether they choose to do breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or brunch on the weekends. So I think the different options were like 15, 17, and 19, depending on your student's preference. Each meal plan had a separate amount of points that we call, oh gosh, I remember, get it point. No, it's not get it points. It's something else, something points. And that can be used. It's $1 per point. So 1 point equals $1. You can use that at all of the different locations that we have on dining locations we have on campus. So the main dining hall, ICOF, is where you have, kind of your main space, but there's a library cafe. The education cafe is really popular. We have one or two other smaller cafes spread out in Armstrong. I think the STEM complex has one. We have something called, the students affectionately called the C store, the convenience store, where they can purchase items, like if they were at a 7-Eleven or a Wawa, like, $2 for a candy bar. I'm sure it's not $2, but you know what I mean. So those points, you have a certain amount that are tied to the meal plan. So that's kind of how we tackle for students that want to eat in other outlets across campus. And then obviously, me as a staff member, if I want to go get a latte at the library cafe, I'll just go and spend $5. So, and I can pay cash. So cash is an option too for commuter students or faculty and staff that don't have meal plans, but that's how it sets up. So there's a certain amount of swipes per week, and then there are a certain number of points that are for the entire semester. So the points will roll over from the fall to the spring, but they will not roll over from academic year to academic year. And then obviously for the spring semester, it'll recharge with whatever, add with whatever point, is equivalent to whatever plan your student chose for the spring semester. So hopefully that helped to answer some questions about that. If the student ID is lost, is there any protection for the funds in case someone else uses the card?
No.
I don't think so.
If you lose the ID card, that's why I recommended that you report it lost or stolen as quickly as possible once you recognize, because it could be picked up by someone and utilized with whatever's on there, whether it be meal plan or get it points.
Perfect. All right. And then I think that I will very quickly talk about textbooks, if people are okay with that, because that's a very common thing now that the schedules are mostly finalized. And I say mostly because normally, and I was talking to the parents who came to my sessions on campus last week, normally at this time, you're really done, right? But because the AP scores, because we didn't receive them from College Board until last week, there might be some slight changes to a class on your student's schedule if it impacted their first semester sequence. But for most students, you should be pretty ready to go. The information I share about the textbooks, so you can order them kind of from anywhere. I recommend the bookstore for a few reasons. The first is that they will price match. So they have the criteria, obviously, but as long as it meets the criteria, if you found the textbook for purchase that was more expensive, they will honor that. The other nice thing is for drop ad period. So let's say, the first 10 days of class, I think it's the first 7 business days, I guess, technically of class, that's the drop ad period. You could drop a class, add a class, make changes to your schedule. They will have, they have some type of comparable policy so that if you end up dropping or adding a class, you can return the textbooks and not get charged. So that's a really nice option if you think there's going to be some wiggle room in your schedule for the first week of the semester. But they make it really easy because you can go, they have a website, click on textbooks, you put in, and I'll try to find it if I have a minute. Before we wrap up here, but you can put in your, I would just go log in and say, okay, marketing 650 is what I'm taking right now. And that was whatever strategic marketing management. It would print out, hey, here are all your required texts. Here are all your optional texts. And you can order them right then and there. If you do it through the bookstore, they will bundle them for you and they have them in a beautiful little box and you can show up at Welcome Week and pick them up and be on your very way. 20 years ago when I was in college, it was like a rite of passage to you're looking at the huge wall of bookcase of, and you're trying to find the little bid numbers and stuff. So they do a really nice job with that there. So just a little bit about the bookstore for those pieces. And what was I going to say about that? Shoot, I missed it. Oh, this is the big question. The question is not really kind of where to get them. The bigger question is, do I go hard copy or do I go digital, right? Because most departments and most textbooks and classes are going to have the option. And what I was telling families last week was you really have to think about that. Have your student think about how they learn, right? So I have done both. As a graduate student, I am done in 5 days, not that I'm counting. I might even be down to an hourly countdown at this point. But I am a planner. I have a physical planner. I have all sorts of highlighters and different colors for different kids and all the things. So for me, I'm a physical copy person, and I retain more if I'm highlighting, if I'm writing things down. I did do, but that might not be your student. Your student might do better. I did my classes last spring. I were digital. I did ebooks, and I highlighted. And the nice part about that piece was that like everything you highlighted, you could just click download PDF, and then everything that you highlighted came out in a PDF, which I thought was really neat. But I will be very honest with you personally, I didn't retain as much information from those classes as I did with the hard copies. So it's really up to your student to decide which way they would like to go. But that's kind of really a personal preference for them, but something they should kind of think about. My other recommendation would be to go early. So you can purchase from the bookstore, and they will do buyback if you want to purchase old or purchase new. They will also rent old and new. So I always went the rental route. The books were in great condition, never had any issues with anything being sloppy or missing pages or anything like that. And then I just returned them at the end of the semester, which was really helpful. So you do have a couple of different options there. And the last thing I'll say to all that is, well, actually two things. One, I would hold off on optional texts, because sometimes faculty members, you may not need it. Sometimes they might say, you know what, I put it on hold at the library because we're only going to use it for this one unit. So you can kind of go and rent it out and come back. So you might have some flexibility, but if you're concerned about pricing or costs associated with textbooks, you could just choose to do the required texts and then wait a little bit and see into the semester, give it a week or two and see if those optional texts are going to be really necessary. And the other thing is that more and more faculty members are really trying to see, are there free options available, right? College is very expensive. Textbooks is one of those classic add-ons that, are into, that just kind of pile on top of your tuition and fee costs. I had an accounting class last fall, and I'm not going to be an accountant. I took this class because it was required for the program, and that was it. And my faculty member was amazing. I mean, this book was probably $200 or $300, but she had a source, and she was able, and we were able to do it for free. We didn't have to pay for any textbooks that semester. And it was really fantastic. So dig around. I don't know what's really out there. I would take a look at some things, but I know that there's more of an effort, I think, these days to trying to bring the affordability piece in a little bit, and then textbooks is one way to do that. So that was kind of the spiel that I was telling to all of the parents about that. Kim at the bookstore, if you email the bookstore, I can try to find her website as well. She is lovely, and her team is more than happy to answer any questions that you have about buying textbooks. If you want, any advice there for that. Scott, anything about textbooks that she normally covers that I would add, or that was kind of the big stuff?
I think you did a nice job of covering it all.
Thanks. Just a little personal experience, right? Okay, so a couple of non-related things to all of this. Let me make sure. Okay, let's talk about move-in for a little bit. So first, I had a question about the number of people that are allowed to help your student move in, and this is for residential students. You can have 2, not including the student. That is it, only 2 people for the 3-hour window. Somebody asked a question about where they should go first. Hang tight. The housing department is going to be sending a whole bunch more information about the move-in process. I would say probably mid-August, before probably about a week to 2 weeks out before drop and go starts. That process starts, but I would sit tight there because they're going to have more details about how that works. I did answer a question about parking. You will not need parking passes that day. They will have some more parking instructions on where to go, but we're not going to be ticketing for that piece. And then for my commuters, I get a lot of those students who are like, oh my gosh, like I want to participate in Welcome Week, but I'm not going to have my parking decal. How's that work? We don't ticket the first 2 weeks of the semester, right? And that's because for our commuter students, it might take them some time to kind of get over here, get their physical parking pass set up. So just as a heads up for that piece, I don't want anybody to panic during Welcome Week that they don't have the pass set up in time. I mean, definitely as soon as the system becomes available, apply for it. But we have a little bit of leeway kind of at the beginning of the semester just to kind of close up the loopholes on some of these things. So that was that about that. I also wanted to make a really quick note about the guest policy. So Scott was absolutely right when he said that you should come visit, but if your student lives in the residence halls, you will not be allowed in the residence halls. So the guest policy, and I was sharing this with families who asked last week, for the upcoming academic year 2021-2022, is that there will be no outside individuals allowed into the residence halls. That includes you as parents, that includes off-campus students, current TCNJ students who are living off campus, and it includes any students that are outside of your residential building. And so that's the guest policy we have in place. Again, we're taking these measures to ensure, or to try to ensure, that we're having as close to a normal experience for our students and keeping them safe for the fall semester here going forward. So just as a heads up, you will be allowed in the residence hall rooms when you're moving your student in for that 3-hour window. When you bring them back for welcome week on August 26th, it will be, well, slow down the car. That's what I was telling parents last week. You don't need to push the student, right? We don't need to, don't come to like a rolling stop and then just go, see you later. But you will not be able to get back into the residence halls after your move-in. When you drop them off, it will be genuinely a drop-off and see you later. We don't have any programming for the parents, and you will not be allowed back into the residence halls until move-out at the end of middle of May. So just an update on the guest policy, and more information about the guest policy will be communicated to the students living on campus at the start of this semester. So they'll go into a lot more detail about that. I was also asked to do a really quick vaccine reminder. August 9th, which is coming up really, really quickly. And I just want to make that plug that every student, whether you are living on campus or off campus, will be required to be fully vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine. We consider fully vaccinated per the CDC guidelines as 14 full days after your first shot or only shot of your Johnson & Johnson, or second shot of a dose of Pfizer or Moderna if you're doing with the 2-dose process. Even if you are partially vaccinated at this point, please upload information in OWL so that we can have an idea of how many students that we're dealing with here. There's a large enough majority that we really want to start to spread the word out. You will not be able to go to classes, and there will not be really virtual options for you. And obviously you won't be able to live on campus. So really important that you take that seriously if you have not gone through and started that process yet. So that was it, other than kind of just my next caffeine chat info. So we have a couple of minutes. Let me scroll back real quick, Scott, and see if there was anything else that came in for you. Thanks for bearing with me for some of these other announcements. Okay, so one person asked a question. We're going to talk, so we have 2 caffeine chats left. The first one, the next one, excuse me, is in 2 weeks. So it'll be regular schedule time, Sunday night, 8 o'clock on Sunday, August 8th. And my special guests for that for that session are Shannon Conklin and Avani Rana, who work in our Office of Career and Leadership Development. So we know that we know this just based on data, that a big reason that CCNJ students and their parents choose us, those families choose us, is because of our outcomes, right? We have one of the highest 4-year graduation rates out of any public institution in the country, and our students are not only getting placed into excellent jobs and employment opportunities, full-time employment, but also graduate schools, medical school acceptances, those things. A huge reason of that is our resources in the Career and Leadership Development Office. So they're going to talk a lot about who they are, how they're available to their as your student, kind of walking you through the process of the services that they offer. So that's happening on August 8th. And then 2 weeks after that is our last one. So that would be the 22nd. Oh gosh, I have my numbers right there. I think it's the 22nd, 18 plus 8 plus 14, or yes, 22nd. Okay, I think I'm good. I have a special guest coming, but we are going to talk a lot about Welcome Week at that one, right? So I'm going to walk you through the schedule and explain the final announcements with move-in process. Obviously, drop and go will already be started at that point. But in terms of your question, David, I think it was you who asked about the families with the drop-off. So it's anytime after 2 o'clock on the 26th, and I would say really at 2 o'clock, because the first tentative meeting that I have with my orientation leaders, meeting with their floors, is going to be at 2:30. They're going to do a welcome to Welcome Week meeting. They're going to meet their floors. They're going to walk through the schedule. They're going to cover what's mandatory sessions, what are not mandatory sessions, answer questions. That's tentatively in that 2:30 to 3:30 slot. So if you have a student who's living on campus, 100%, you want to drop them off really in that 2 to 2:30 window and get them back to their residence hall so that they can meet with my staff. I have 2 orientation leaders assigned to each floor. And commuter students, yes, obviously did not forget about you. I have orientation leaders that are assigned to the commuter students. So their check-in will be in a little bit later. So obviously you're not moving in. We do a big welcome pizza dinner, and we walk through the Welcome Week schedule and do a very similar welcome to Welcome Week type of thing. It's just for all of our commuters. And that happens, I think, tentatively like 5:30-ish. So if you have jobs or other obligations during the day, that's fine. But that's a really important one to go to so that we can kind of cover what you need to go to and not go to, and just to get you connected. So what'll happen with my commuter students is, because you don't have like a physical place on campus to congregate, the group me is really big. So we get everybody in one group me. And then that way, if you're showing up at 10 o'clock in the morning, like, hey, where's everybody at? that, the rest of the students that are on campus can let you know where they are. So whether you're residential or commuter, everybody participates in Welcome Week. It is a top 3 TCNJ memory to last a lifetime. I will talk more about that. We're finalizing the schedule now, and that'll go out in mid-August, but that will be the 22nd. That'll be a little bit more information for you about there. Okay, I think we're just about time. I will go back and take a look for any other information that popped up. Again, I mean, I'm seeing questions about advisors. Reminder, advisors are not assigned until the first week of class. So if your student has any questions at this point about their schedule, any concerns with their schedule, they really need to be reaching out to their contact in their academic department. All of that information is listed in their online orientation module. In the introduction module, I break it down by academic school, very easy to find. So make sure that you know anything pertaining to schedules at this point really needs to go to them. I had somebody who emailed me and they were like, Professor Barton. I'm like, 1, no. 2, I have no idea how to help you with your schedule. You have to go talk to your department there. So let's see here. Welcome week schedule. I mentioned that. So that was mid-August. Can you tag in for move in? Tag in and out for move in. If we have 3 of us, can 2 people help switch? No, it needs to be the same 2 people. We're really trying to keep numbers down. There's a certain amount of slots per time frame, per residence hall for you to do that. And it's not just our incoming new students, it's all of our upper class students as well that are participating if they opted in. So, we're really trying to keep numbers down. So unfortunately, you can't tag in there. If we want to come to campus and visit, do we need an appointment or can we just get a visitor pass? You should be able to get a visitor pass and just walk around. We're a public college. So it's, you can kind of come and walk around. I will share with you, the residence halls are obviously not going to be accessible. I did have a few families who asked if they weren't able to come last week, if they were able to see one, and unfortunately due to regularly scheduled maintenance and repairs and cleaning and getting ready to go here with just a couple weeks to go, we're not going to be able to accommodate that. But walking around campus is certainly not an issue there. We're just following same procedures. So, fully vaccinated masks would be optional indoors, but if you're partially or not vaccinated at all, we ask that you maintain the 6 feet and you're wearing masks indoors to protect our community. Let's see here. Please clarify, for move-in students can have 2 guests. Yes, Nick. So 2 guests, not including the student. 3 total people if you are including the student for that piece. Will there be any time designated for discussion questions about the residence halls? Janet, I'm not, I would say if you have specific questions, you could start maybe with student transitions or maybe go directly just to housing at tcnj.edu. We will be talking a little bit about housing in the August 22nd caffeine chat, but that's very close to and into day 2 of the drop and go move in. So if it's something more urgent than that, I would expect or I would suggest that you reach out to the housing department with your specific question there. And can you bring more than 1 car for the move in? I guess you could bring 2. Here's my deal with move-in. I'll end on this note because I think it's important. Don't feel like you have to bring every single thing you think you need the first couple weeks of the, for move-in, right? I feel like the tendency is to overpack and to bring everything in. And honestly, it used to be one of my favorite days of the year. I always tell this story that years ago now, probably 5 or 6 years ago now, I watched 2 male students attempt. And they did it. They never came back out. It had to have been like an 86 or 90-inch TV, whatever the inches are at that size. This was the biggest TV I've ever seen. And I thought, there's no way they're getting this into the towers. They didn't come back out, but take a deep breath, right? So you don't have to have everything in move-in. Sometimes you do need to live in the space for a little bit. So I always encourage students just to think a little bit more minimalistically. You need your sheets, you need some clothes, obviously your computer and all that kind of stuff, maybe a decoration or 2. But for the most part, I think living in the space for a couple weeks and figuring it, with your new roommate, because there's a lot going on there, is helpful because you can always come back. So Labor Day weekend always falls the weekend after, and a lot of families will come back and bring a couple more things then. Again, you won't be allowed into the residence halls this year, but your student can come out and grab those pieces. And then, of course, Parent and Family Day. So that's going to be Saturday, October 2nd. Homecoming weekend. More information about Parent and Family Day will be coming out shortly, and that's actually going to be something else I talk to you on the, a little bit later on. We're going to continue these chats into the fall, so we can talk a little bit about that. But just a piece of advice for you there. You can bring 2 cars, I guess, which is fine, but don't feel like you need to bring, everything that your student owns with them because there's plenty of time to come back and forth from campus to do that. Okay. Other questions related to the residence halls, I'll chat with later. I know, we could be here honestly for a whole nother hour talking about all of these things. So, Scott, I just want to thank you again so much for taking some time and being flexible. I really appreciate you shifting the day. But I know the information was great. Anything, final thoughts that you want to share with the parents before we wrap up?
Again, any questions they might have, anything we talked about or anything they may think about in the coming days, please feel free to email our office. We're more than happy to get back to you. Just please be patient. We are going to get inundated with lots of emails and need a little bit of time to get back to you, but I promise you we will certainly do that. So again, welcome, and we're here to hopefully make your transition as smooth as possible.
I know. We're so excited. We're like, it's not even, somebody told me last week we're at like 4 weeks. They're going to be here before we know it. And I'm just so jazzed. So thank you all so much for joining live tonight. Really appreciate you. Again, email student accounts. You can email me if you don't know where to go for questions, to just the student transitions at tcnj.edu. But otherwise, have a lovely evening. And we will see you in a couple of weeks. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Thank you all.